They had fame, fortune, and fans who believed nothing could touch them. Yet, in the blink of an eye, a simple drive turned into tragedy. Car accidents have stolen some of the world's brightest stars, leaving behind broken dreams and unanswered questions. But which names left us in the most shocking, heart-stopping ways? Before you think you know, prepare yourself. Because the stories we're about to uncover might just change how you look at Hollywood forever. James Dean. He was Hollywood's eternal rebel, but he never lived long enough to grow old. James Dean, the star of Rebel Without a Cause and East of Eden, symbolized restless youth in the 1950s. His acting career had just begun to explode when he developed another passion: fast cars. Dean wasn't just a casual driver. He was deeply into racing, often tearing across tracks in his Porsche Speedster. On September 30th, 1955, Dean was behind the wheel of his silver Porsche 550 Spider, nicknamed Little Bastard. That day, he was heading to a racing event in Salinas, California. Riding with him was his mechanic, Rolf Wutterich. Along the way, a Ford Tudor attempted a sudden turn across the highway. Dean's Porsche slammed into it. The impact was instant and fatal for Dean, who was only 24. The nation was stunned. Here was a star who had embodied rebellious energy, gone in a flash before audiences could see what he might become. His death froze him in time, forever young, forever restless. Hollywood quickly mythologized Dean, making him not just a movie icon, but a cautionary tale about speed, fame, and fragile youth. Even today, Dean's story carries an eerie chill. That Porsche, Little Bastard, later gained a reputation as cursed, involved in more crashes and injuries long after Dean's passing. Some say it was as if the car itself carried his restless energy. James Dean didn't just die in a car accident. He became a symbol of life cut too short, reminding us that even the brightest flames can burn out in an instant. Princess Diana. The world remembers where they were when they heard the news. Princess Diana was gone. Known as the People's Princess, Diana captured hearts with her compassion, her grace, and her defiance of royal traditions. But on August 31st, 1997, the fairy tale turned into a nightmare. Diana was in Paris with her companion Dodi Fayed, pursued relentlessly by photographers. Their Mercedes sped through the Pont de l'Alma tunnel, trying to outrun the chase. The car lost control and crashed. Dodi and the driver were declared dead at the scene. Diana was rushed to the hospital but didn't survive. She was only 36. The shock was immediate and global. Crowds gathered outside Kensington Palace, laying mountains of flowers. Millions tuned in to her funeral, where Elton John's tribute song echoed through history. For many, it felt not just like the loss of a royal, but the loss of a symbol of kindness in a harsh world. The aftermath was filled with questions. Was the press to blame? Could she have been saved with better protection? Conspiracy theories swirled for years, making her death one of the most analyzed tragedies of modern times. Yet beyond speculation, the impact was undeniable. Diana's passing reshaped how the monarchy connected with the public, forcing the royal family to show emotion in ways they never had before. Her legacy still lives on through her sons, William and Harry, and the humanitarian causes she championed. Diana's car crash was more than just an accident. It was the end of an era, leaving a permanent scar on collective memory. Paul Walker. The irony was devastating. Hollywood's most famous racing star lost his life in a real car crash. Paul Walker, known worldwide as Brian O'Connor from the Fast and Furious franchise, had become synonymous with speed, friendship, and loyalty on screen. Off-screen, he was equally admired for his humility and charity work. On November 30th, 2013, Walker attended a fundraiser for his Disaster Relief Foundation. During a break, he hopped into a Porsche Carrera GT driven by his friend Roger Rodas. Just minutes later, The car struck a light pole and burst into flames. Both men died at the scene. Walker was only 40. The world reeled. Fans who had watched him race through countless film chases couldn't comprehend the cruel twist of fate. Tributes poured in from co-stars like Vin Diesel, who called him a brother, and from millions of fans who felt they had grown up with his movies. Walker's death had a ripple effect far beyond Hollywood. Production of Furious 7 was halted, rewritten, and eventually completed with the help of Walker's brothers as stand-ins. The film's ending became a tearful farewell, not just to a character, but to the man himself. The song "See You Again" became an anthem of remembrance worldwide. Unlike many Hollywood stars, Walker wasn't known for scandal or ego. His passion was cars, yes, but also giving back. In many ways, the tragedy felt like the loss of someone genuinely good. Paul Walker's passing was more than another Hollywood accident. It was a reminder of life's cruel irony, when reality mirrors fiction in the most heartbreaking way. Jane Mansfield. She was billed as Marilyn Monroe's rival, but Jane Mansfield's ending was far more brutal. Mansfield rose to fame in the 1950s with her platinum hair, hourglass figure, and playful persona. Films like The Girl Can't Help It made her a pop culture sensation, while her appearances on television and in magazines kept her in the spotlight. But her life off-screen was chaotic, filled with career struggles and personal turbulence. On June 29, 1967, Mansfield was traveling late at night in a car with her lawyer and driver, along with her 3 young children in the back seat. As the car drove near Slidell, Louisiana, it slammed into the rear of a tractor trailer hidden in the dark. The 3 adults in front, including Mansfield, were killed instantly. Her children, however, including her daughter Mariska Hargitay, who later became a beloved TV star on Law & Order, SVU, survived. That haunting detail added another layer of legacy to the tragedy. Mansfield's passing shocked Hollywood, not only because of her young age, she was 34, but because she had been on the verge of a television comeback. She had signed guest spots and stage appearances, trying to rebuild her career. Instead, the accident turned her into one of Hollywood's most infamous cautionary tales. Even now, the name Jane Mansfield conjures an image of glamour cut short, and a career that never got the second chance it deserved. Anton Yelchin. He was Hollywood's next big thing. And then, in a freak accident, he was gone. Anton Yelchin was only 27 when tragedy struck. Known for his roles in Star Trek as Chekhov and in acclaimed films like Crazy, Yelchin had proven himself a versatile talent. His mix of boyish charm and emotional depth promised a long career. But on June 19, 2016, fate intervened in the most unexpected way. At his Los Angeles home, Yelchin's Jeep Cherokee, later found to have a gearshift defect, rolled backward down his steep driveway, pinning him against a brick pillar. When he didn't show up for rehearsal, friends discovered the unthinkable. The entertainment industry reeled. Fans couldn't process how someone so young, so full of potential, could be lost in such an unusual accident. Tributes poured in, with Star Trek co-stars praising his brilliance and warmth. His parents later established a foundation in his name, supporting young artists and raising awareness about cystic fibrosis, a disease Yelchin had quietly battled throughout his life. What makes Yelchin's death even more tragic is what he represented, a bridge between mainstream blockbusters and indie cinema. He wasn't a celebrity chasing fame, he was an actor chasing art. Losing him wasn't just the loss of a star, it was the loss of countless performances we'll never see. Anton Yelchin's story is one of Hollywood's cruelest what-ifs, a reminder that talent and destiny don't always get the time they deserve. Sam Kinison. He made millions laugh, but his own ending was anything but funny. Sam Kinison was a stand-up comedian known for his booming voice and wild stage presence. By the late 1980s, he had become a staple on TV talk shows, drawing both controversy and admiration for his unfiltered humor. On April 10, 1992, Kinison was driving to a show in Nevada with his new wife, just days after their wedding. On a desert highway, his car was struck head-on by a teenage driver who had been drinking. Kinison was gravely injured and died at age 38. The shock was immense because Kinison seemed larger than life, loud, brash, unstoppable. His sudden silence felt surreal. Comedians like Robin Williams and Jay Leno paid tribute, acknowledging how Kinison's style had reshaped stand-up comedy. He had blurred the lines between raw confession and outrageous performance, paving the way for edgier comedy on both stage and television. But perhaps the eeriest part was that eyewitnesses claimed Kinison, in his final moments, spoke softly, as if in conversation with someone unseen, before passing. Kinison's death left behind not only laughter that still echoes, but also a chilling reminder of how fragile life on the road can be. Nick Adams. He fought for respect in Hollywood, but his ending was overshadowed by a crash. Nick Adams was best known for his role as Johnny Yuma in the popular 1960s television western The Rebel. The show made him a household name, and his brooding persona won him legions of fans. Yet Adams longed for more than TV fame. He craved recognition in films, working alongside icons like James Dean and Elvis Presley. By the mid-1960s, however, his career had begun to decline, and he struggled to find the same success on the big screen. In early 1968, Adams was involved in a late-night drive after visiting friends in Beverly Hills. Though the official cause of his death would later stir debate, reports noted that the crash was the fatal blow that ended his life at just 36. For a man who had dreamed of rising higher in Hollywood, it was a jarring and premature end. What made Adams's story particularly haunting was how many stars of his circle, James Dean among them, had also died young. It fed into the mythology of Hollywood's cursed rebels, actors who burned brightly and vanished far too soon. Nick Adams remains a reminder of how television fame can launch a career, but not always protect it from tragedy. His name might not be as remembered as others, but for fans of classic TV westerns, his loss was deeply felt. Grace Kelly. From Hollywood royalty to real royalty, Grace Kelly's ending was as tragic as it was shocking. Kelly was America's beloved screen goddess, starring in classics like Rear Window and To Catch a Thief. But at 26, she left Hollywood behind to marry Prince Rainier III of Monaco, trading film sets for palaces. On September 13, 1982, Kelly was driving through the winding mountain roads of the French Riviera with her daughter, Princess Stephanie. Suddenly, she lost control of her Rover and veered off the cliffside. The car plunged down a steep embankment. Kelly was rushed to the hospital but did not survive. She was only 52. The news stunned the world. Grace Kelly had been the ultimate fairy tale, a Hollywood starlet who became a princess. For many, her untimely death shattered the illusion of happily ever after. Monaco plunged into mourning, and Hollywood paid tribute to the actress-turned-princess who had enchanted audiences across continents. Even decades later, the road where the crash happened is visited by admirers who still whisper, "She should have grown old like the rest of us." Grace Kelly's death was more than a royal tragedy. It was the sudden end of a fairy tale, leaving behind a legacy frozen in time. Lisa Lopez. She was one-third of one of the biggest girl groups in history, and then she was gone. Lisa Left Eye Lopez, the fiery member of TLC, helped shape the sound of the 1990s with hits like Waterfalls and No Scrubs. Her talent, energy, and bold personality made her a favorite among fans. But her life came to a devastating halt on April 25, 2002. While traveling in Honduras for a spiritual retreat, Lopes was behind the wheel of a rented SUV. The vehicle suddenly veered off the road, flipped, and crashed. Lopes was killed instantly. She was only 30. Her bandmates and fans worldwide were devastated. TLC had been at the top of the music charts, selling millions of albums and changing the face of R&B. Lopez's death marked not just the loss of an artist, but the unraveling of a trio that had defined a generation. In the aftermath, unreleased footage from her trip surfaced, showing Lopez speaking candidly about her life and legacy. It added an eerie sense of foreshadowing that continues to haunt her story. Lisa Lopez remains immortal through her music, but her ending is remembered as one of the harshest reminders that even at the height of fame, tomorrow isn't promised. Roger Rodas. His name may not be as famous, but he shared Paul Walker's final ride. Roger Rodas wasn't a Hollywood actor, but his connection to Fast and Furious lore made his death part of the same tragedy. A professional race car driver and Walker's close friend, Rodas was at the wheel of the Porsche Carrera GT on November 30, 2013, the day it crashed in Santa Clarita, California. While Walker's passing shook fans across the globe, Rodas's loss carried its own weight. He wasn't just a driver, he was a respected businessman, philanthropist, and father. He and Walker had co-founded Reach Out Worldwide, the disaster relief charity they had been supporting at the event that day. The accident claimed both their lives in seconds, creating a tragedy within a tragedy. While the headlines focused on Walker, those who knew Rodas remembered him as the steady, grounded figure who balanced Walker's star power with quiet determination. For fans of the Fast and Furious franchise, the double loss added layers of heartbreak. It wasn't just about a movie hero, it was about two real men, bound by friendship and passion, taken on the same day. Phil Hartman. He made the world laugh, but he left it in silence far too soon. Phil Hartman was one of television's most versatile comedians, celebrated for his years on Saturday Night Live, and as the voice of beloved characters on The Simpsons. His blend of sharp wit and goofy charm earned him the nickname The Glue among the SNL cast. But in 1998, at the height of his career, tragedy struck in a way that stunned the comedy world. Hartman lost his life following a domestic dispute that ended in violence. While not a traditional car crash story, what makes his tale intersect with this list is that his struggles with fame and stability often revolved around the trappings of Hollywood success, including cars, wealth, and status symbols that couldn't shield him from personal turmoil. Hartman's sudden loss rattled fans of television comedy. News Radio, the sitcom he starred in at the time, was forced to write his absence into the storyline, leaving both cast and viewers grieving. Tributes poured in from SNL alumni, with many saying that no one could match his ability to transform into countless characters with ease. Even decades later, Phil Hartman's death is spoken of in hushed tones, because it wasn't just the loss of a comedian, it was the loss of a friend, a father, and one of TV's most steady sources of laughter. His ending may have been rooted in tragedy, but his legacy lives on every time an old SNL sketch or Simpsons rerun plays on screen. Ryan Dunn. He lived life on the edge, and it ended the same way. Ryan Dunn, best known from Jackass and Viva La Bam, built a reputation as the fearless prankster who would try anything for a laugh. Fans loved his wild stunts and reckless charm, which made him stand out on MTV in the early 2000s. But on June 20, 2011, Dunn's lifestyle caught up to him. Driving a Porsche at high speed in Pennsylvania, he lost control, and the car veered off the road, bursting into flames. Both Dunn and his passenger were killed instantly. He was only 34. The news devastated his fans and colleagues. Johnny Knoxville and the Jackass crew were heartbroken, admitting that Dunn had been like a brother. Audiences who had grown up laughing at his antics suddenly faced the sobering reminder that living dangerously can end tragically. Dunn's accident wasn't just a personal tragedy. It symbolized the darker side of fame built on thrill-seeking. For fans, his death felt like the end of an era, when outrageous stunts could no longer mask how fragile life really is. James Horner. He wasn't a screen actor, but his music defined Hollywood. James Horner was the legendary film composer behind Titanic, Avatar, and Braveheart. His sweeping scores moved millions, earning him Oscars and a permanent place in film history. But on June 22, 2015, tragedy struck. Horner, an avid pilot, was flying his small aircraft in Southern California when it crashed in a remote area. The accident killed him at 61, leaving the film world stunned. His passing was especially painful because Horner had always infused his work with themes of soaring triumph and emotional depth. To think the man who gave us the haunting notes of My Heart Will Go On had his life cut short in such a way felt painfully ironic. Directors like James Cameron and Ron Howard publicly mourned his loss, calling him irreplaceable. For audiences, every time they hear the swelling orchestra of Titanic or the battle cries of Braveheart, they are reminded of what was lost. James Horner may not have been in front of the camera, but his sudden death was one of Hollywood's most shocking, leaving silence where music once soared. Mark Salling. He was on top of the world, and then everything spiraled. Mark Salling rose to fame on the hit TV show Glee, playing Noah Puck Puckerman. His bad boy charm and musical talent made him a fan favorite, especially among younger audiences. But Salling's life took dark turns off-screen, culminating in legal troubles that overshadowed his career. Before sentencing, he was found dead in his car in 2018. His passing at 35 was a jarring reminder of how fame and scandal can collide in the most destructive ways. The Glee cast was left shaken, as the show had already been marked by multiple tragedies. Salling's story became another chapter in the so-called Glee curse, where several young cast members met untimely ends. For fans, the grief was complicated. It wasn't just about losing an actor, it was about reconciling the joy his performances had once brought with the controversies that followed. Freddie Prinze. He was supposed to be the next great comedy star. Freddie Prinze didn't just arrive in Hollywood, he exploded onto the scene. In the mid-1970s, he became an overnight sensation with Chico and the Man, the sitcom that turned him into a household name. With his boyish charm, quick wit, and infectious smile, audiences across America adored him. Producers and fans alike believed he would define the future of TV comedy. But behind the laughter, Prinze struggled. Fame came too fast, and the pressure weighed heavily on his young shoulders. Despite his skyrocketing career, his personal life was unraveling. On January 29, 1977, in a moment that shocked the nation, Prinze was discovered in his car after taking his own life. He was only 22 years old. For audiences, the news was devastating. Fans who had tuned in every week to watch Chico banter with Ed Brown couldn't fathom that the smiling young man they loved was gone. His passing hit especially hard in the Latino community. Prinze had been one of the first major Hispanic stars on American television, breaking barriers and offering representation where there had been none. His absence left a void that would take decades to fill. Though his career was tragically brief, Prince's legacy endures. His son, Freddie Prinze Jr., grew up to become a successful actor himself, carrying his father's name into a new generation of Hollywood. Freddie Prinze's sudden ending is one of television's most haunting losses, a chilling reminder that even meteors that burn the brightest often fade the fastest. Mark Bolan. He sang about love and magic, but his ending was a cruel twist of fate. Mark Bolan, the frontman of T-Rex, was the face of glam rock in the 1970s. With songs like Bang a Gong, Get It On, and Children of the Revolution, he captured a generation's spirit with glitter, flamboyance, and unstoppable energy. But Bolan harbored a private fear. He never learned to drive. He always insisted someone else take the wheel. convinced that cars would one day be his undoing. Tragically, he was right. On September 16, 1977, just 2 weeks before his 30th birthday, Bolan was a passenger in a Mini driven by his girlfriend, Gloria Jones. The car swerved off the road in London and struck a tree. Bolan was killed instantly. His prediction had come true in the most devastating way. Fans across Britain were gutted. At the height of his fame, Bolan had been worshipped as a rock god, his music fueling parties and movements alike. His death was not just another rock star tragedy. It marked the end of glam rock's golden age. To this day, fans leave flowers and tributes at the tree where the crash occurred, now known as the Mark Bolan Rock Shrine. It stands as a chilling reminder that even those who dream of forever can be cut short on an ordinary road. Mark Bolan's life was a glittering comet, but his death proved that not even rock legends can outrun fate. Harry Chapin. He sang about fathers, sons, and time slipping away, and then his time ran out. Harry Chapin, the folk singer behind Cats in the Cradle, was more than a musician. He was a storyteller, an activist, and a humanitarian who donated much of his earnings to fight hunger. His songs resonated with honesty, giving a voice to ordinary struggles. On July 16, 1981, Chapin was driving to a benefit concert on the Long Island Expressway when tragedy struck. His small Volkswagen Rabbit stalled in the fast lane. Moments later, a tractor trailer slammed into him at high speed. The impact ended his life instantly. He was only 38. The loss was staggering. Chapin wasn't just popular, he was influential. His concerts often doubled as fundraisers, and he had testified before Congress to push for solutions to world hunger. Fans and fellow artists alike mourned a man who had used his platform for more than fame. News of his death felt cruelly ironic. The man who sang about time slipping through our fingers had his own time stolen in a heartbeat. In the aftermath, his family carried on his mission through the Harry Chapin Foundation, ensuring his voice lived on in more than just records. Harry Chapin's death was not simply another accident on a busy highway. It was the silencing of one of folk music's most compassionate voices, leaving listeners to wonder what more he might have given the world if fate had allowed. Cliff Burton. One icy night in Sweden changed heavy metal forever. Cliff Burton wasn't your typical bassist. In a genre where bass often stayed in the background, he dragged it into the spotlight, making it scream, soar, and lead. Fans adored his unconventional style, and by his early 20s, he was already hailed as Metallica's secret weapon. On September 27, 1986, Metallica's tour bus hit a patch of black ice in rural Sweden. As the vehicle skidded out of control, Burton, asleep in his bunk, was thrown from the bus. The massive vehicle then toppled onto him, ending his life at just 24. The surviving band members were shattered. For days, they considered walking away from it all, believing they couldn't go on without him. But ultimately, they chose to continue, dedicating their future work to his memory. Burton's presence lingered in every note, every performance, and every fan's heart. His death wasn't just the loss of a bandmate, it was the loss of a revolutionary. Burton had shown that bass could be as powerful as guitar, reshaping the sound of an entire genre. Cliff Burton's story is a harsh reminder. No matter how unstoppable you seem, fate can silence you in a single, merciless moment. Jessica Savage. She was poised, glamorous, and destined for greatness. Jessica Savage rose quickly through the ranks of television news in the 1970s, becoming one of NBC's most recognizable anchors. Known for her sharp delivery and striking presence, she represented a new era for women in broadcast journalism. But behind her polished exterior, Savage struggled with a turbulent personal life. Fame was demanding, and she often admitted to feeling the weight of constant scrutiny. Still, her career seemed unstoppable, until one rainy night in 1983. On October 23rd, Savage was a passenger in a car driven by her boyfriend as they left a restaurant in Pennsylvania. The driver missed a poorly marked turn, and their car plunged into a canal. With the windows closed and doors jammed, both of them drowned. Jessica was only 36. The news industry was shaken. Viewers who had invited her into their living rooms nightly couldn't fathom that she was gone. For aspiring female journalists, her death was more than a loss. It was the collapse of a rising star who had broken barriers in a male-dominated field. In the years that followed, Savage's legacy grew. Books and films were inspired by her life and tragic death, reflecting both her brilliance and her vulnerability. She became a symbol of promise, cut short. Jessica Savage's story isn't just about a car sliding off the road. It's about how quickly brilliance can vanish, leaving silence where a strong, confident voice once stood. And there you have it, 19 lives, all stolen on the road in ways no one could have imagined, from movie legends like James Dean to music icons like Lisa Lopes and Mark Bolan. Each story is a haunting reminder of how fragile fame and life itself can be. Which of these tragic endings shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. After all, the road ahead is never promised.